Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we're unlocking a really specific bit of criminal law, secondary liability. We're digging into how Philippine law handles responsibility for crimes someone else commits. We're talking principles by induction, Article 17, Paragraph 2 of the revised Penal Code for those keeping score.
Right. And our job today is really to break down what it actually takes. The intention needed, that crucial causal link. It's surprisingly strict criteria, just suggesting something into actual criminal responsibility.
It's not about planning together like co-conspirators.
No, not exactly. This is about the person who lights the fuse, provides that critical spark. And a key point right off the bat. Liability only sticks if the crime actually happens, or it's at least attempted. You can't induce a crime that never gets off the ground.
Okay, so the law sees, two main ways this inducement can actually happen?
Yeah.
How do they hold someone accountable just for suggesting something?
Well, legally, there are kind of two tracks. First, there's forcing. That's where the person doing the act, the executor, is basically compelled. Irresistible force or overwhelming fear.
So the executor might even be exempt in that case.
Exactly. They might be exempt and the inducer takes the full weight. But the second way, and this is often where it gets more complex, is simply inducing.
Inducing. And that makes them co-principals. They share the blame.
Correct. Both the inducer and the person who carries it out are seen as principals. They share that criminal responsibility.
Okay, let's focus on that inducing part. What kind of push does it take? It can't just be like a casual suggestion, right?
Definitely not. It needs powerful motivation. The cases point to two main types here. The first one's pretty straightforward. Pecuniary consideration.
Money.
Yep. Price, reward, or some kind of promise. There's a classic case involving a wife paying someone to, eliminate her husband's mistress. Direct financial incentive.
Makes sense. Paying for a crime, but human motivation's obviously broader than just cash. What else counts?
And that's the second category. Command or relational authority. Think hierarchy, psychological dominance. Using your position or influence over someone.
Okay, like a boss ordering an employee, maybe.
Could be. But it also covers more subtle relational dynamics.
Yeah.
And this is where the idea of consideration gets really interesting, because the courts have said it doesn't have to be money changing hands.
Ah, right. This is that fascinating part.
Absolutely. There was a case, Alcontin, I believe. A married woman suggested her lover kill her husband. The motive. So they could be together freely.
Wow.
And the court said that prospect, the future relationship, that was the powerful consideration. It totally reframes what reward can mean.
That's a pretty high level of influence, equating a future relationship with a contract for murder. So given how powerful this inducement has to be, what are the core legal tests? How do you separate, say, just venting or bad advice from actual criminal induction?
Okay, this is crucial. There are three essential things the prosecution has to prove. It sets a high bar. First, direct intent, meaning the inducer must have had the most positive resolution to get the crime committed. Just, thoughtless remarks, sarcasm, or even really imprudent advice, like that old example of telling a wife to rob her stingy husband. That's not enough.
Needs real deliberate intent. Okay. What's second?
Causation. This is huge. The inducement must be the determining cause. The sine qua non.
The but-for cause, but for the inducement, the crime wouldn't have happened.
Precisely. If the person who actually did the crime already had their own reasons, their own independent motivation.
Then the inducement wasn't the determining factor.
Exactly. The causal link is broken.
Okay, let's break down that causation piece. If it has to be the determining cause, where does this usually fall apart in court?
Two main failure points we see in the cases. First, timing. Temporality. The inducement has to come before the act.
Makes sense.
There's a case, Castillo, where someone yelled, "You kill him!" But the fatal blow had already been struck.
So the words couldn't possibly have caused the action.
Right. Too late. The cause and effect just isn't there.
Okay, timing's one. What's the other major way the causation argument fails?
Independent motivation. We touched on this. If the person carrying out the crime already had their own solid reason, their own grievance, like in the Omni case, the accused supposedly shouted commands, but the person doing the hitting already had beef with the victim from a previous fight.
So even if the words were said, the court figured he might have done it anyway.
Essentially, yes. Since there was a sufficient pre-existing reason for the perpetrator's actions, the alleged inducement wasn't seen as the necessary push. It wasn't the determining cause.
So boiling it down, liability really hangs on whether that communication, that suggestion or command was powerful enough and timed right to actually override the other person's will. It had to be the thing that moved their hands.
That's the core of it. Was it that effective? Did it cause the action?
Which brings us to a final thought, something for you to consider. If the whole point is overcoming someone's will, what happens when that will is, well, less developed? Think about minors. The law often recognizes that a suggestion that wouldn't sway an adult could easily be the determining cause for a child, simply because they lack that mature judgment or discernment. Makes the inducer's words potentially much more potent, legally speaking.
A very important consideration indeed. The vulnerability of the person being induced definitely plays a role.